Hey.
Hi, welcome to the Glad to Be Human show. I'm Irene O'Garden. I'm so happy today to welcome Sherry Richert Belul to the show. But first, we'll begin with my theme song and the theme song of so many others on planet Earth. Let's just take a moment and let's just take a deep breath and let it go. Ah. And as I say to my little students, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, open your eyes if you closed them, and welcome back. I'm going to let you know a little bit about this amazing woman that we're going to be spending some time with today. Sherry Richert Belul helps people find creative, intentional, and impactful ways to celebrate life and to express love for family and friends. As a certified high-performance coach, Sherry supports people in living their best lives, full of joy, success, engagement, and meaningful relationships. She's the author of Say It Now, 33 creative ways to say I love you to the most important people in your life. Her creative gift ideas have been featured in Town and Country, Brides, Modern Bride, In Style, Red Book, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Huffington Post, and on and on and on. And she's the founder of Simply Celebrate. You can find Sherry at simplycelebrate.net, or you can simply continue looking at your screen, or you're going to hear from her personally because she is a great, great spirit. Welcome, Sherry. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thanks, Irene.
Sure. Well, I so enjoyed Say It Now. I feel like it is such a beautiful resource for those of us who like to help humans feel glad to be human. I love that you call yourself a celebrationist. Could you tell us what that is?
Yeah, well, I use the word celebrate a lot. And I always like to tell people up front. Usually people think about balloons and confetti and parties. But for me, and I think that you'll relate to this because of what I know about you, to me, celebration is really about being here and alive, right? It's about this moment, whether we're standing outside and watching a butterfly flip by, or whether we're grieving someone we love. There's a celebration in being human, right, Irene? I know that this is exactly where we connect, and that's, to me, that's what being a celebrationist is being alive and glad to be alive.
Yeah, noticing it, yes, and taking that pause, that, or offering that piece of color or that bit of movement or whatever. One of the things that I was, you brought up grief just now. When I looked at your website, which is, by the way, a beautiful collection of resources for people who are looking for ways to say I love you to the people close to them, or looking for ways to celebrate life, loads of free stuff. So I'm gonna go there. But one of the areas that I saw in one of your drop downs is celebrating in the dark. And I was so taken by that phrase. And can you explain a little bit more? I think this is something that a lot of people would really value knowing more about in this particular time period.
Thank you. Thank you for visiting my site, and also for choosing that place, because actually that's the place where all of my work started. So everything from Simply Celebrate grew from a period where I was suicidal. And
oh, wow.
For me, there was, and I won't go into the whole long story, but the short part of it is that I learned in the darkest place of my life that a tiny moment of light would save me. And that is, in fact, what saved me.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
I would love to. And I know that you're a fan of meditation, so you'll understand this. So I was really in this place of constantly thinking how to get off this planet. big, long story there, but I was led to a meditation class, and there was one in breath, and I actually heard in my head, I don't want to kill myself. There was a sense of, okay. And I had this image of like an iron wall closing in on me. That's what the depression felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a little pinprick of light in the iron wall.
Wow.
And I mean, you can imagine, right? Like, and I think this is, for me, the imagery came to me in that moment, and it has really stuck with me, because when we're in the dark, when we're grieving or sad or lost or disappointed, whatever that is in the dark, whatever it means, the various on the spectrum of it, but a little moment, a little light makes all the difference.
Wow. Well, I love too that you allow that to arise from within you. It wasn't somebody telling you you've got to see the light. It wasn't a substance. It was your own natural breath. And I know that you and I share a belief that we totally can trust ourselves and we can rely on ourselves. And the human being is meant to live in joy and in celebration. So, wow, that is really inspiring. So tell me about the inspiration for this book. How did it come about, this book? Say it now. Was there somebody that you wished you'd said something to, or did all of a sudden you found you wanted to say a lot to a lot of people, or how did it come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also came from maybe kind of what you might call a dark place, which is that whenever I would go to funerals or memorials, and I would I actually really would love the stories people tell, the appreciations. There's usually a photo wall. And I always loved that, but I would say, well, why don't we say these things now? Why don't we say them when people can hear them, rather than, or in addition to, actually, because it's great to celebrate people after they've passed away. But I am such an advocate for, don't wait. Say those things now when people can hear them. And that's what the basis of the book is all kinds of ways to appreciate people in our lives. Hopefully fun ways. It's really
they're great fun. They're great fun. I love that. Also, you address people who feel like, oh, I'm not an artist, or I can't really do anything creative, and you like walk people through. You don't have to have a bunch of little craft supplies, but boy, they're fun if you've got them. One of the ones that I love the most, and I love the story that goes with it, is the story of the love list, the story about your mom. Could you let our viewers know about that?
I would love to, Irene. Thank you for choosing that, because the love list is the cornerstone of my work, because the love list is basically what it sounds like, which is it's a list of why we love someone. It's really important. And I give people all kinds of prompts, because the more specific we are, the more they feel that love. So the more that it reflects the relationship between, yourself and the other person. And the very first one I made for my mom when she was turning 50, which was more than 30 years ago now, which is really crazy to me. And that love list changed everything. Even before I gave it to her, it changed me. It really filled me. It was almost like I saw her with new eyes. And I saw just all kinds of things that I appreciated and loved about her that maybe hadn't been conscious before. And that's what the love list does. It brings to the consciousness things that we may know, but we don't, you had said earlier, it's about noticing, right?
Are there like some details from that list that come to mind that you didn't realize until you wrote them down?
Yeah, like some of the small things, which is really an interesting thing, right? Like, so my mother has the same joke every time, I come visit her, and she's had this joke for decades. And it's something like that it's like when we walk in the house, she always says, we travel from across the country. She always says, oh, I hope you can stay for dinner. Like, that's her little joke, and it's something, it's so tiny, but what it does is it's a little ritual, right? And we always all laugh, and it's a tiny thing like that. But there were also some really big things that I hadn't been aware of, which is that my mother has always encouraged us to do whatever we wanted to do. Like, she's not the sort of mother who would say, you're not going to make any money at that, or, you know, how are you going to, or that doesn't feel very smart. Like, she's always just like, that's great, go, you know.
It
And
sounds like you're embodying a lot of what he gave you. You're giving out to the world in such a profound way.
yeah, there's a lot of my mom in my business, and people who are on my mailing list know every once in a while my mother will make a voice recording for my community, or, you know. Yeah, so
You have a community of co-celebrators?
of course, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
tell us about that. I didn't know about this.
Well, so Simply Celebrate, you know, I everyone who is, you know, on my mailing list, they're my co-celebrators, right? So they we're talking about my mom, for instance, when it was her birthday one year, she was actually grieving a big loss. We had a death in the family, and she didn't want any sort of, you know, celebrations or parties.
Mhm.
I invited my list to send her birthday cards in the mail. She loves mail, and she's a big card writer. So, you know, I think about 250 people took me up on that offer.
Oh my gosh.
And her cards in the mail, right? That's one of the gifts in the book, which is, I call it a greeting card bonanza. But it's a way also she got they're like now her friends, right? I mean, she kept a list of every single person. She wrote to every single person.
Oh.
But that's an example. Or like right now, every year for my birthday, I write letters to strangers. And so people in my community, I reach out to them and I say, do you know someone who's going through a hard time? Someone, obviously right now it's a pandemic, so everybody does.
Yeah.
And they tell me just a little bit about the person, you know, nothing too personal, but they also tell me some things they love about them and what makes that person so beautiful. And I send a letter from the universe. So
I love that. That is great.
Yeah. Wow. So they help me. I mean, they are co-celebrators in many ways. And of course, you know, I'm always sharing ideas, and then they share their stories with me about how they're carrying these things out with people they love too.
Oh, that is wonderful. It's like spreading all this excellent energy throughout the universe, which does need it right now. I mean, I know you're on the West Coast. You've just been through. Are you still aflame out there, or where you are?
You know, just last week again, we had some fires up in Napa. I'm in San Francisco, so we haven't had fires right here, but we've been surrounded, and our neighbors and friends, and yeah, it's, you know, it has been really terrifying for people. On top of everything, right? Like on top of all the other layers of, yeah.
Are you seeing a change in your coaching practice right now, or are people sort of pulling back a little bit, or as you begin to speak with people one-on-one, what, you know, are they, how are they doing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And actually, my practice, I think, you know, people have needed coaching more than ever. That's the one. I started a group coaching program right when the pandemic started. And I called that Nightlight because, again, back to my, you know, my focus on a little bit of light, how it changes the world. Irene, are you there? Because you're a little frozen on my end.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure. Can you hear me?
I'm
going to give it a second, or maybe I'll just keep talking and maybe you'll come back to us. I hope. What was I just saying? Oh, so I started a coaching program when the pandemic started called Nightlight, which was obviously about helping people to find some light in the darkness of the pandemic. And so, yeah, so I have been doing a lot more of the group coaching work as well as the individual. And I think people need coaching more than ever now because, like your work, right? This is what you do. I don't know if do you call yourself a coach?
I don't actually, because I've never been certified. I've been certified for other things, no. But I've never been certified. But I do think of myself as an encourager. I'll often call myself a freelance mother. one of the reasons I didn't have kids is that there are a lot of freelance opportunities for that kind of energy. So I try to put into the universe when it's called for. But
I love that. Yeah, and that's what I started to say. Like, I would think of you, even though you don't call yourself a coach, but I think more than ever, right? We need all the support we can get, whether you call it a freelance mother, an encourager, or a coach. This period, especially, I've been doing a lot more coaching because I think people want to stay positive, but it's a lot harder than ever, I think.
Yeah. Well, the idea that I just loved book is the idea of giving a soiree for an artist, writer. I think this is an idea, and especially necessary now. One could do it for others as well. I'd love to talk a little bit about the idea, and was the one of a piece of art to encourage the folks who are watching not only to do that, but to think about how they could support artists and writers in their community.
Oh, Irene, I love this. I just want to let you know I'm having a little hard time hearing you, but I think what you said, or where I'm going to go, has to do with the supporting the writers and artists in our lives.
Yes.
Right. And in the book, I talk about, actually having people to your home and having the artist there and doing some sort of celebration party for them. If they have books, obviously you could sell their books. I had done it for a playwright friend of mine whose show was going to be opening soon. Right now, I don't want to encourage people. Right now, we're not gathering in person, but we could do the same thing on Zoom. I have actually hosted book launch parties for friends on Zoom. And that's a really easy thing to do. And actually, you can have a lot more people. So what I've done is simply invited my writer friend, and I've put out an invitation to everyone I know, and the writer friend invites everyone they know. And then I just sort of host it and read from the book and share things, have the author read. Maybe we do some giveaways or gifts. And maybe there's a discount on the book, or maybe just encourage people to buy the book. But you're right. Like we all need so much support right now. And especially, I think our writer artist friends who are really supporting the good feelings in the world.
Hear, hear. I completely agree. And the idea too of purchasing a piece of art. I know there are online galleries right now that are happening, and art centers that are sharing exhibits virtually. So I would encourage people to go out and give those artists a hand. This is where it's all coming from. Now, there was in your acknowledgments, I noticed you were thanking members of a mastermind group. Can you talk about mastermind at all? I've seen that referenced many a time. I've never been part of it. Has that played an important role in your creating your life?
Oh, Irene, yes. Oh, I can't believe you've never been a part of one. So a mastermind, and they can come in different forms, right? So sometimes they're business masterminds, but there are also just kind of, life masterminds. I've been in many in my life that have been, of various kinds. At the moment, I think the one that you're referring to, we call BFF, Best Friends Forever. And it's a group of women who do all have unique heart-centered businesses. So it is a little bit business related, but it's also very much about our spiritual journeys and our journeys as parents. And, so it's kind of a holistic mastermind. And what it is it's a real dedication to one another's personal growth. I think that's, for me, at least, that's the easiest way to describe it. Again, like we've been talking about throughout this conversation, it's hard to do things on one's own. It's hard to stay, accountable to our dreams. It's hard to stay accountable to our health and to being sort of our best selves. But when we have people who sort of are holding that vision for us and with us, that can be such a huge support.
Wonderful. Do you, I was going to ask, as a celebrationist, If there are a couple of celebrations that you recall that were just what you wanted them to be,
Ooh, that's
and
a
if you
great,
could about that.
that is such a great question. And I'm actually going to start with the simplest, because this, what I love to encourage people, simply celebrate, right? I like people to know that it can be very simple. So last weekend, for instance, I've been going through quite a hard time with a family member who's been very, very, very depressed, and it's I needed some color in life, and I needed to feel glad to be human again.
Yeah.
And so a small group of us, socially distanced, we went to, there's a lake in Oakland called Lake Merritt, and we brought Chinese lanterns, and we put little fairy lights in them, and we brought flowers, and we brought classical music, and I have a picnic basket that has, all of the checkered cloths, and and we brought real wine glasses. And I start with that because it wasn't a special occasion. That was an example, actually, of celebrating in the dark. I needed to kind of come back to some sense of being happy, because I've really been in pain for the person that I love so much. And it doesn't really cost that much. I mean, I have had that picnic basket for 30 years. My beau has the Chinese lanterns. He's had those for many years, right? That even if you buy them, they don't cost that much. But they created a beautiful, beautiful setting. And everybody who walked by, everyone with their mask, and from 6 feet away, would stop and say, "Oh, it's so beautiful. What are you celebrating?" Oh. And we would just say, "Oh, we're just glad that we're alive right now," right? Like, And I started with that because it wasn't my 50th birthday. It wasn't a wedding. It was an ordinary day that we wanted and needed to make extraordinary. And to me, like, that was the first thing that dropped in when you said that, because it filled me with what I really needed, which was this, not just the color and the beauty that we brought, but it filled me with the connection to my family and my friends who were with us, but also to the people walking by, even though, yeah, we were all social distance. Yeah, we had on our masks, but that was okay,
Well, I love that you keep giving this out to strangers as well as to the people who are nearby, whether it's writing a letter or simply being in a public place where people can see you fully expressing yourself in a joyful way. I love that you share that. And did you say you had another one that you wanted to?
Oh, well, I didn't, but I will. I can easily. So again, I'm just saying what drops in my mind. Another thing that dropped in my mind, this studio that I'm in, you can't really see it, but it was built by two people I love dearly. So I live with my son's dad, but we're not together. We have not been romantically together for many, many, many years, but we've lived together to raise our son. And I have a boyfriend of 15 years.
Well done.
That's a whole nother story. But the story is, they built me the studio with their love and their sweat and their talents. Both of them are just, they built it from scratch, no blueprint.
Wow.
And when the studio was finished, we gathered some people together. This was way before the pandemic, so we could actually be in a small space. And before I moved all my studio furniture in, we put a dining room table and chairs, and we had dinner. And somebody had sent me a bottle of champagne for something I'd done, so we had champagne. And I dressed, I dressed up, even though we didn't go anywhere. I just got all dressed up. And again, like, that idea of just the marking of something, like, that was such an important moment. And the studio represented a lifetime of love, really, so.
Wow, what a beautiful, and what a great collaboration of energies. That's a beautiful balance in life. And to talk about something to celebrate. Wow, those two gentleman, and putting it all together on behalf of you. And when you just said you dressed, I just have to just say this to our viewers. I have been fortunate to be on more than one broadcast with Sherry, and she's always just looking so fun. She's got this great sense of style. I just want to ask you, in your book you talk about packing stockings and fantastic hats and shoes and taking them to Paris. Tell me about your style. Where did your style come from?
Oh, Irene, and first of all, back at you, right? I love to see when you first got on. I always love to see your color, and yeah, and the truth of it is that once again, with everything in my life, grew out of the darkness, which I find, I love that about it. Actually, we didn't have very much money when I was growing up, and I always had, I didn't have the kinds of clothes that other people had, right? So people had, whatever their designer clothes they were wearing or whatever. And it was hard for me. And at some point I found thrift stores. Oh. And when I found thrift stores, what I discovered is that when I would find things that I loved that made, were really fun, they were also one of a kind, right? Because it was not what everyone else was wearing. And so it took out that whole feeling of, oh, I can't be like that. Instead, it was just, who do I want to be? Right? And I think maybe, can I project this on you? Like, I feel that from you.
Oh, I had a lot of, believe me, I would shop at theater costume sales back in the day when I was acting, and I spent definitely, thrift stores would be like, yeah, what can I do? Maybe I could take this off. Maybe I could put this on. Maybe I could, yeah, I hear you.
So it's a really, I love that, because now I love my wardrobe, and it's just very eclectic, but it's what I love. Mm-hmm. And when I go places, I try to wear things that bring me joy.
Well, you're a walking celebration. Is there anything else that you would like us to know about what you do, or about your book, or about your work? And you may not have an answer to that question. I just always like to leave space for it.
Thank you. First of all, this has been so much fun. And I love talking to you. The thing that dropped in that I feel as if I really want to say, even if I've already said it, life happens in singular moments. Life, and I try so hard to come up with fun ideas to celebrate life and to appreciate people that don't cost a lot of money or that don't take a lot of time. And I just want people to always know that. Like, so, something so simple, and you'll see this in my book, which is leaving a voice note for someone, right? You can take 10 seconds. You could just say one thing you love about them. You could play a song that is meaningful to both of you, and that can happen in less than a minute. And you send that off to them, and they feel your love. And I want people to know that it can be that simple, and that those little singular moments, they're like a string of fairy lights, right? They light up our lives. So,
that's great. That's a great image. The image of frames in a movie came to my mind too. These separate things that actually are part of the flow. And that should be life is pretty intense. Okay, now here's the money question, they say, which is, what makes you glad to be human?
Oh, Irene, I love you. I love your book. I love that question. And you know what? Again, totally what's dropping in this moment, like, I'm looking at this person across from me who we didn't know each other 6 months ago. And now we do. And it's the connection, and it's the joy of the mystery of meeting a new person. And you help me connect to parts of myself that make me glad, but you also connect me to who you are, which makes me see new things about being glad to be human. It's connection to me. That's it.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Sherry. This has been just an absolute delight. I'll play the outgoing theme song. And thank you, one and all, for watching, and more to come.
Thank you, Irene. You're marvelous.
Thank you. You too, my dear. Bye-bye.